Well, the government has announced a series of drastic steps to ease the pressure on an immigration detention system that is at bursting point because of the unrelenting flow of boat arrivals. Tonight, 19 asylum seekers will spend their first night on Manne Island in Papua New Guinea. They're likely to stay in the reopened processing centre for years. Detention centres on the mainland are being recommissioned or expanded, and the government is preparing to release thousands of detainees to live in the community, but with no guarantees about staying in Australia long term. Melissa Clark reports from Canberra.
From Iran and Sri Lanka to Australia and now to Manne Island.
The first transfer of asylum seekers to Manne Island in Papua New Guinea was undertaken overnight and completed this morning.
These 7 families, including 4 children, will remain in Papua New Guinea for years, and the government hopes their circumstances will deter others.
People smugglers have been peddling the lie that if you come to Australia by boat as a member of a family, then you wouldn't be processed in another country. You'll be processed in Australia. Obviously, that is not the case, and today's transfer and the transfers that will follow will underline that point.
The government is talking tough, but asylum seekers are still as willing as ever to risk their lives at sea to reach Australia. Around 8,000 have come since the government adopted the Houston Expert Panel's recommendations. The opposition says that shows the system isn't harsh enough.
If it's going to work, it's got to involve all of the people who are coming illegally to this country, not just a handful. 18 people to Manne Island. That is a tiny handful of the 2,000 plus that are coming every month now. This government doesn't have its heart in it.
The Greens say it's too harsh.
Now we're going to have an even more extreme regime that says we tried to be cruel to people because we thought that would deter them. However, we obviously haven't been cruel enough because it hasn't deterred them. So we're going to be even more cruel.
But most asylum seekers will have their claims processed on Christmas Island or the mainland, and the government's struggling to house them.
And it's sensible in managing this and also in terms of prudent contingency planning that we take some steps to expand the capacity of our onshore detention network.
A detention centre in Tasmania is being reopened and another in Melbourne expanded. More will be allowed to live in the community.
The detention network, the broader system, has been completely overwhelmed. That's why the government has made the decisions and the announcements that they have today. They simply can no longer cope with the level of border protection failure that they have created.
The government says asylum seekers processed on the mainland won't be any better off having avoided Nauru and Manne Island.
People who have their claims processed in Australia and are found to be refugees will remain on bridging visas until they are issued with a protection visa in accord with the no advantage principle. They will still be subject to potential future transfer to Nauru or Papua New Guinea.
What we've seen today is John Howard's temporary protection visas reintroduced all over again.
Refugee advocates say it could be worse than that.
It literally condemns people to a completely uncertain and indefinite fate in the community with no time limit specified as to when or if they would indeed get protection in Australia.
But the coalition likens it to a free pass.
These are not temporary protection visas. These are entry permits that have been handed out in record numbers for people to come straight off the boat, a short transit in detention and straight into the community.
It's another step in the government's desperate attempts to stop the boats, but it's also another step away from Labor's original position, which condemned leaving asylum seekers with an uncertain future. But the government's made its direction clear, and criticism from the Coalition, the Greens, human rights groups and even its own backbench won't divert it. Melissa Clark, Lateline.